And we'll just wait a few seconds here while everything comes through to the LinkedIn. But welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's live stream with the Intermodal Rail Committee, Safer by Design, How Rail Strengthens the Supply Chain, brought to you by our panelists Elise Ghosh and Mike Dickmeyer, who will be introducing themselves shortly. And this presentation is also brought to you again by the Rail Committee. Um, with that, we just have a few housekeeping items for everybody. And starting off, I'm going to go through the TIA antitrust statement. Thank you, Mike. Discussion, comments, and presentations during TIA functions must not refer to any past, present, or future rates, prices, or anything related thereto. Include any reference to marketing strategies, include any discussion of boycotts of any person, product, or firm, or inhibit any members' employees from discussing employment with other member companies. Additionally, things you hear during the meeting that are confidential and private to TIA should not be shared publicly without its prior consent or used against or in competition with TIA. And with that, Mike, if you could go to the intro slide for you and Elise, that would be great. And then I will turn it over to you, Kelly and Shelley.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Kelly DiNapoli. I am the chairwoman of the Rail Logistics Committee here at TIA. So my career has been solely focused on dealing with working with 3PLs and brokerages on educating intermodal and providing intermodal options to those companies. So I'm excited to be a part of this team and be able to do these lunch and learns with you guys. Shelly Austin is the president of Intech Logistics. So she's going to help me along today if I miss anything. So she's going to jump in. But I'm really happy to introduce Elise Ghosh, who is the VP of Loop Logistics, part of the Union Pacific Railroad. And then Mike Dickmeyer, who is the general director of shipment quality over at the UP Railroad as well. As we do the presentation, there's an option to submit questions. So please use that. And you can also see that little banner going across the bottom of the screen. Feel free to submit those questions and we will do a live question and answers at the end of the presentation. So welcome, guys. We look forward to hearing this.
Great. Thanks, Kelly. We're excited to be here. She said it already. My name's Elise Ghosh. I run our Loop Logistics subsidiary here at Union Pacific. I've been with the railroad for over 22 years, most of that time in the marketing and sales realm and all the different commodities. Did a stint in corporate strategy and am now running our subsidiary for the railroad. I'm really excited to be here with you guys. This is a new platform and a template. And so by all means, whoever's out there, feel free to pause and ask questions as we go along. But we're here today to really talk about the benefits of rail, how shipping by intermodal can help with the safety of that, and what we are doing at Union Pacific to keep shipments of freight safely moving. With me, who you'll really want to hear from is my colleague, Mike Dickmeyer, and I'll let him get a little background on him before we jump into the content.
Thanks, Lisa. Hello, everyone. Mike Dickmeyer, General Director of the Shipment Quality Team. My background is over 30 years with Union Pacific in various commodity teams, mostly in the automotive and intermodal world. I've done both international and domestic intermodal and actually spent several years on the Loop subsidiary of UP, leading the wholesale door-to-door intermodal team. So today what we thought we'd do is just kind of jump in and talk a little bit about who Union Pacific and Loop is. So I'll turn it back to you, Elise.
Yeah. So I think most people are aware, I sit on the TIA board and represent Loop and Union Pacific. And Union Pacific is one of the largest railroads. Presently, our tracks run the western 2/3 of the United States. And our strategy is safety, service, and operational excellence. And we are leading in the space, in the railroad space. I guess the topic that TIA wanted us to talk about is really that safe handling of freight. And it is so close to what our strategy is: safety, service, and operational excellence. We want to make sure that we move people's freight safely to provide an excellent service, and that makes us operationally excellent. So it's a very, very topical topic for us and right in line with our strategy. I mentioned Loop. I'm going to say it again. We are a subsidiary. So what we do is we take the benefits of over-the-road trucking and the benefits of rail and combine that together in a solution for our customers. And so Loop is about $1 billion business. What makes us extra unique for going on over about 30 years is our cross-border expertise, providing door-to-door solutions for customers in the intermodal space. That's kind of our bread and butter and where we really have a lot of expertise. And we also have shipment supply chain visibility called Shipment Vision. It's proprietary software that allows us to track and trace our customers' freight no matter what rail line it's on. And so just wanted to give a high level of the organizations that we represent. We'll be talking a lot of things about the industry as a whole, but if anybody has questions about Union Pacific and moving freight with UP, reach out to us and let us know. If you're not really directly rail served, like a lot of our intermediaries aren't, if you're a broker and you want to do more with intermodal, reach out to Loop and we can make that happen as well. So with that, let's get to the topic at hand. And when we talked at a board meeting last month, we really had an opportunity to kind of step back. We know that freight fraud and theft is a big topic. But we also had to step back and think, let's celebrate the fact that rail is the safest land transport in North America. So everybody out there that is trying to tackle this topic and this problem, first and foremost, doing more with intermodal is a good strategy to make sure that you can provide a safe offering to your customers. So by the stats, you can see 99.99% of all hazmat moved by rail reaches its destination without incident. That is by far the safest way in all land transportation. If you know or don't know, we have a UIIA driver certification. Anybody that comes into an intermodal ramp has to be certified. That's really important from kind of the freight fraud perspective. Mm-hmm. We have a setup already. Not anybody can get into our intermodal ramps, and that provides that extra layer of barrier. So another opportunity to provide your customers a safe haven for their freight. We have had a lot of investment in our safety profile, and you can see the stat where overall as an industry, derailment rates have gone down as well. And then I think a unique thing that if you don't know enough about rail, you might not understand or appreciate. Union Pacific and a lot of the railroads have their own police force. I'll talk about Union Pacific's because that's the one I can speak to, but it dates back to 1869. We predate the FPI. And in fact, a lot of the processes that were built on the railroad were brought into the FBI practices and whatnot. And I think that's unique. We know, and I mean, there's plenty of shows on the History Channel and back to the Pinkertons and everything. We have been dealing with this freight fraud and theft for a long time. And if you go to the next slide, we know that we put a lot of effort into it, but so have kind of the bad guys, so have the thieves. And you can see some of the data from a publicly available source. And this is just a snapshot of where and why you guys are here on this call today, of what can we do collectively to reduce these stats, right? And I'm not going to dwell too much on this slide. You really want to hear from our expert in this space, Mike. He works with our customers day in and day out to make sure that we provide damage-free shipments to our customers. And again, like I said, using intermodal is a great way to do that over and above over the road truck just today because of the inherent benefits of rail. Enough of me blathering. We'll get to Mike, the expert on this.
All right, so kind of kick it off, we were asked to do kind of an educational session. So we're going to talk through some of the ways Union Pacific works to basically combat the theft that goes on in the transportation industry, specifically on rail. Our shipment quality team is part of the marketing sales department. So we work primarily on the damage prevention side of it, working with customers and shippers to make sure you have a damage-free shipment on rail. Should there be damage or theft or vandalism, my team also handles the claims process as well. But we are a unique team because we're part of marketing sales, but we work much more on the operational, mechanical, logistics, as well as our police department on advocating for damage-free shipments, including theft prevention and stuff. And how we do that is we kind of attack it these 4 ways. And this is the kind of our agenda for the day, what we'll talk about. What's the investment in that safety and theft prevention? We'll talk a little bit today about the high value protection program for intermodal domestic shipments. We'll talk about what's going on the national as well as state and local levels for advocacy initiatives there through legislation. And then we'll kind of wrap it up and kind of tease you with some tips and tricks. But really at the end of this is more of a dialogue on best practices and what you guys see as industry partners and what we can all do to work together. So as I go to the next slide, this kind of boils it down a little bit more. You know, we approach our theft countermeasures through technology, how we operate, improvement to our infrastructure, and then of course the collaboration with stakeholders like yourselves. So if you look at what we do on the technology side, we have over 80 what we call live view technology cameras. We have drones, we have thermal imaging and all that. And all that is into like kind of a centralized database, centralized dispatch center that allows us to protect your freight as well as our infrastructure. When we see trespassers or we see people on property, we can quickly dispatch security agents through third-party services or our own police special agents to go and address the situation. In addition to that, Union Pacific and including their partner carriers in the East have invested over $20 million on GPS and door sensors on the rail fleet, domestic rail fleet for the EMP and UMAX products out there. That's really helped us identify where theft occurs. When you have a seal breach or a door opening, it tells us where it's happening. It allows us to identify the hot spots throughout our network and then leverage some of the other operational infrastructure and collaboration that we do to combat that. And then most recently, like everybody, leveraging technology as it comes and grows and evolves. AI has been a big player in that. And we can continue to learn through that and take advantage of those more affordable technologies. When it comes to securing operations, our police department works with local, state, and federal agencies on an extreme collaborative basis. It's important to make arrests. However, the industry is not going to arrest their way out of these challenges. A lot of the issues in the last 4 or 5 years have been we're making a lot of arrests, we're not getting a lot of convictions. However, over the last year or so, we've actually tripled our arrest to charge rate with collaborations with the local agencies, but most important, dedicated prosecutors and such that allow us to, because a lot of this is just deemed property theft and it's not always the highest priority. Well, that has changed significantly this year and it continues to change as we go forward. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. Our special agents, our Union Pacific Police Force, we patrol the hot spots along our corridors, especially in the Southern California, Los Angeles area. We know where the crime happens. It's very difficult to protect a 10,000-foot train. You can't man the entire train, but we do have ways to work with that. And that goes back to the technology we use as well. And then I mentioned before the collaboration that's always going on the multiple agencies. When you talk about infrastructure, and Union Pacific has invested capital for over 52,000 feet of barriers. And these are concrete, cement, razor wire type walls to keep the perpetrators basically go out the property. It's worked significantly. It kind of started in the Long Beach area and it's moved us southeastward. Unfortunately, so as the crime continues to move eastward. So they do have a way to get around, but we continue to invest in that. Union Pacific has spent over $40 million in these efforts so far since 2023, and that'll continue to go. Well, I want to talk a little bit more here in the next slide about the high value program, but we actually have 14 facilities on our intermodal network that have what we call high security lots. These are high visibility with cameras next to the high foot traffic areas in our facilities that we park high value shipments in to help protect. That's been a huge, huge improvement on terminal theft because the criminals aren't getting into the high value areas. They might be on the perimeters and such, but it has definitely improved that process. And then lastly, the stakeholder collaboration. It's with customers like yourselves, the parcel industry, the retail industry, obviously TIA, you got IANA, and even on a high level with the AAR, there's a lot of different task forces that are out there trying to work collaboratively to drive prosecution and to reduce the overall criminal element. So I'll move on to the next slide, talk a little bit more about our high value program that we have out there. And this is specifically for the domestic intermodal shipments that move along Union Pacific. They're considered the high value. You're talking your electronics, your apparel, your computers and stuff like that, a lot of liquor shipments. What we do for this program is we actually identify the shipments through a specific STIC code, Standard Transportation Commodity Code, that is programmed within our system to do several things. And really what that does is allows our police force to monitor trains with this specific type of STIC code on it. So when they know a train is coming and going in their region, they apply security, additional security, or they track that to make sure those containers aren't getting broken into. Additionally, we will place those high value containers as best as we can on the bottom well of a 53-foot well car. When that happens, you cannot open the doors. So that's definitely a barrier for break-in there. There is some requirements to the shipment high value program though. We do ask and require a bolt or cable type seal and a theft deterrent type barrier seal. And I'll get into detail and examples, a few on the bottom of the picture here, on what those entail. But that's really what, it's important. It's not just putting a simple seal on the container. We all have to kind of pitch in and combat the theft and vandalism that's going on in the industry. So we need the shippers' assistance as well. And part of the qualifications for the program also require the seal information recorded on the billing, as well as you take pictures of the product and the seal on the door so we have evidence on what was being used. It does provide additional liability coverage up to $250,000 per container. So that's also a benefit of the program. And then I mentioned before the hot lots or the high visibility lots that we have designated at 14 of our terminals across the network. So I mentioned seals earlier, and what I want to share here is just kind of the level of theft deterrent type seals that are out there. Starting from the left, going to the right, the easiest ones to break to the most toughest ones to penetrate. And if you take nothing away from the slide, please take this. Please do not use the plastic and tin seals. I preach that daily to our customers. I know it's a simple thing to do. I know it has a serial number on there, allows you to track when you shut the door or not. If you have to use these, I ask that you place them on the left door hasp. If that's important to your tracking process. But most importantly, use a security, theft deterrent, or even an internal lock, which there are some equipment in the industry now with internal door locks. Those are by far the best, very difficult, almost impossible to break into. Everything else in the middle here, yeah, you can break into them. And we see that if criminals have enough time, they're going to find their way in. But it does make it much, much more difficult to break into containers if you have a stronger security type seal or a theft deterrent seal. And what I always preach is layers of seals. If you can use, for example, a U bracket that covers the door handles and the door bars, and then additionally on the top right there, the figure 8 cable seal at the very top of the container, you're making it extremely difficult for the criminals to break into your container. So been a ton of success with the pilots that we've done using the figure 8 seal. And it doesn't even have to be a figure 8, it's any type of cable seal at the top of the container. But again, multiple layers of securement. I do understand the logistics. We do understand sometimes the cost impact of that, but it does prevent theft break-ins. So the last thing we want to talk about is a little bit more on the federal level. There's legislation in Congress in what it's called CORCA, which is the Combating Organized Retail Crime Act. That has multiple facets to it. But really what that is really what we see. It's not so much just a smash and grab phenomenon out there. It's obviously, and you probably have all experienced it at some level, it's extreme organized criminals and organizations that are extremely sophisticated technology, manpower, and what have you. We may arrest an organization 15, 20 times in a month, and they just keep bringing more people in to do the same type of theft. So it's a big challenge, but the advantage of the CORCA is it's providing more visibility, collaboration through all agencies that I've mentioned before in order to drive funding towards the prosecution and prevention of the theft. It's increasing the penalties for those type of criminal organizations, which makes it more difficult to get out of jail quickly. And then the last thing I'll pull up, kind of mention there, is just the enhancement of law enforcement tools and agencies that, to really drive down the cargo theft. So again, another key takeaway that I like to stress on this slide is if there's interest, we do advocate that customers, shippers, intermediaries, we all work together, trucking companies, to really drive, pardon me, really drive, the advocacy at all levels. I mentioned it earlier. We have large parcel customers. We have a lot of retailers that already collaborate with us. If you're interested, please reach out to Elise or myself, and we'd be happy to connect you with our government affairs team. All right. So as we wrap this up, let's talk a little bit about the tips and tricks, kind of summarizing what we mentioned before. Use the best type of security seals that you can. Do not use a tin or plastic seal. You can literally just break those with your fingers. Very easy for the criminals to break in. And then what we've learned too, as we investigate and arrest criminals, stay alert at your facilities. We've made arrests, and it's not just Union Pacific. A lot of the railroads or others have as well. People spy facilities, whether it be a fulfillment center, distribution center, warehouse, what have you. They wait to see where that container is loaded with and where it goes, and eventually they do some pretty sophisticated things to mark that container and then break into it later when it's on train. So be aware of your surroundings, put up barriers, prevent criminals from looking into your terminals and such. We do the same thing as well, and we've learned a lot from that. That has helped reduce some of the theft. Be vigilant. If you see an issue, an issue. If you have a carrier picking up a product or a container from our facility, definitely report the seal exception. That helps us identify where those hot spots are. On this slide here is actually our hotline to call. And anytime you have a railroad related issue, please call that and they'll dispatch our police or the appropriate authorities to that location. And then the last piece is, again, looking for your help and participation on a advocacy level. The more we can bring all the markets and industries together to explain at a high level to the legislators, hey, we need more support, we need more money to combat these major issues that we see every day. So I'll pause there and kind of turn it over to the Q&A side, as we would love to hear some of your questions or comments or best practices.
Thank you, Mike and Elise. Appreciate that. And just as a reminder, everyone, wherever you are watching this live stream, whether that be LinkedIn or YouTube, please feel free to comment with your question or any feedback, and we would love to discuss it. And we should be hopefully hearing from some people shortly. Mike and Elise, in the meantime, are there any, frequently asked questions or, things that have come up in the past 2 or 3 months that have been a big change that have really, caused a lot of energy or attention? Anything that, sticks out like that?
I think the only thing I would add that wasn't in the presentation was Proposition 36, which was a legislation passed in California last year, took effect this year. It really made a big difference. It allows prosecutors to increase the penalty levels for property theft. It was petty misdemeanor, now more of a felony level when it's multiple catches. If you do 3 or 4 misdemeanors, it becomes a felony. And that was critical because sadly enough, we've arrested some people dozens of times and they've never spent a day in jail other than, the quick processing and release same day. So that has actually helped a little bit. The challenge we have with that is the organized crime units have also figured that out. So they continue to rotate the ones that are doing the break-ins. So you still got to work on that challenge. But that's just a positive example on legislation that has made a good impact on combating the theft.
Yeah, the one thing I'd say from my perspective, I think it's no surprise that Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern announced in July our intention to merge. Why that's exciting for me for 2 reasons. One, on the intermodal space, the ability to cut out stops and interchanges at kind of key pain points not only is going to be better for the intermodal products, so we can move more intermodal business for our customers and help them save money, but also reduce the incidence of theft that sometimes can occur when those handoffs occur. When a train is sitting or freight is sitting at those handoffs, that can be a more advantageous spot for our criminals to do that. When you reduce that ability to interchange and you speed that up, you reduce the incidents that will happen. So that's exciting, that I think something that's new that's happened that will impact this topic that we're talking about.
So I'm going to jump in real quick. Mike, great, and Elise, great presentation. Thank you very much. This is definitely on the forefront of what we're all dealing with. One of the things that I think is huge is the GPS that you talked about in the containers and having that visibility. What kind of, you mentioned technology and everything else, what kind of notifications, what kind of tracking, what is that GPS bringing to not only just alert the customers or the shippers of what's happening to that particular container, but also the the research to be able to take all that information and maybe be proactive in finding the hot areas that are getting hit, those types of things. Tell us a little bit about that.
I can speak as an intermediary and IMC myself, kind of what we're doing, and then you can share, I think, kind of what our police force and integrations that we have. But so Loop, using the rail-owned boxes, we call it what UP has about 92% equipped at this moment. We are piping that data right into us and creating geofences for all our locations. And so that was step number one, ingest the data. Step number two, create the geofences that you want activities to happen. And so when we get pings for doors opening that they're not in their geofence and they're not, that is coming to us in an alert. So then we can work with the railroad to we can see if there are movements that are on the street that shouldn't be there and work with our dray carriers to say, hey, what's going on? That's not according to our routing protocol. And sometimes they're like, there's a very logical reason, and we work through that together with the dray carrier. And sometimes we're finding, ooh, that was good news that they didn't know either. Let's figure out what that is. So those are two examples that we're seeing the benefit. So highly, highly recommend ingesting that GPS data that's now available on the Railbox and putting it into kind of some decision science to alert you.
Yep. So what I'll add to that is our police team has actually aggregated that information and created heat maps, if you will, on where door openings occur. And it's pretty sophisticated where it's not just on the Railbox fleet, but it's also customers if they're using a type of seal that sends out a notification if breached or opened. Some customers are even putting light sensors inside the containers, excuse me, or on the freight. And that we've aggregated out into areas so that we can identify where we want to deploy resources, whether it be people, security, or even the camera systems, which are very effective as a deterrent. Just knowing that you're being watched helps keep people off the tracks as well. So if you have those type of initiatives within your company, and I'm talking more on the seal or light center side, then for sure we'd love to collaborate with you on how to share that information.
Excellent. And one of the things that we have experienced being an IMC as well, and I want to make sure and share to the listeners, is that Mike, your team has been super helpful because this can be very daunting for people, especially for an IMC or a broker who's trying to assist their customer in taking that next step to better protect the product. You may not know how to help guide them on where to find these different seals or what to do with them. And I just would say that your team has been extremely responsive in helping, with how to find the higher class seals. Some of the things we've been working through are how to remove the higher class seals, which is great, right? If people can't figure out how to remove them, we're a step ahead. But I think that, I'm sure we'll do that towards the end, but you could do it now, Mike. I think it's very important for everybody on the call to know how accessible Union Pacific's group and expertise is to help guide through this. This is not something we all have to go out and figure out and do on our own.
No, absolutely. I appreciate those comments, Shelley. And when I was asked to do this session today, it's an educational session. And I'll be honest with you, I do about 5 or 6 of these more one-on-one on a weekly basis, because it is difficult for individuals, whether it be the corporate location or what have you, versus just the people doing the transportation on a daily basis, to truly understand the magnitude of theft and vandalism that's occurring in North America. So it's helpful to educate on it. What I'll add to what you said, Shelley, though, is we also work with vendors, multiple seal type vendors, on collaboration and R&D type stuff. In fact, I'll be in Southern California next week working with a vendor. It'll be on a boxcar seal, but nonetheless, there's similar type of solutions on boxcar, intermodal containers, hopper cars, and stuff like that to secure the freight and protect it from being vandalized or stolen. So that just this last, I'd call it 18 months, there's been a ton of industry collaboration on that, and we're seeing better and better solutions in the marketplace. And good news is they're not all super expensive. The price is coming down as well on some of those, whether it be a technology base or just hardened steel type seals that are out there. So did that answer everything you asked for there, Shelley?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Perfect. Well, it doesn't look like we have any comments or questions from the audience at this moment. Just as a reminder, if you do have a question or a comment after the conclusion of the live event today, feel free to still comment either on LinkedIn or on YouTube, or if you would prefer to send TIA Education an email at education@tianet.org, we will get you an answer to your question and point you in the right direction. And just another reminder there, whenever you want to come back and review this webinar for some of those key nuggets that Mike and Elise mentioned, make sure to come back to wherever you were watching this live stream, whether that is on LinkedIn or on YouTube. And if you have any questions or issues accessing that recording, please feel free to reach out to education@tianet.org. With that, Mike and Elise, did you have any closing comments or key points to leave us with? Or Kelly or Shelley, did you have anything left on the agenda today to shout out before we head out?
I'll end with saying thank you for having us. We think this is a very important topic that's going to take all stakeholders.
Yeah.
It's not just one person's role that's going to help fix this. And so I think having open discussions and benchmarking, sharing sessions with, hey, what worked for you? How are you tackling this? How are you handling this? I think is so important because, again, when we look back at the history of UP police and organized crime, this is a 200, 300-year-old problem. And it's going to continue to change. So how do we stay a step ahead and how do we to navigate together?
Yep. Well said. Nothing to add there.
Well, thank you guys. I mean, I think it was really good to have you guys on. Very informative. And Anthony, as always, thank you for, always hosting these lunch and learns. I think TIA does a great job of always doing these sessions and providing additional education to the brokers out there and carriers. So I do want to add, if anybody that's watching this and their company or they're a member of TIA and they want to be a part of the Rail Logistics Committee or another committee that might be under TIA, definitely get involved. There's a lot of things you can join under TIA. So feel free to reach out to any one of us, Shelley or I, or even reach out to Anthony, or just reach out to education@TIA just to get some contacts because we would love to have people join the committees and just get more involved because I think the more we all join together and share our ideas, I think we're just going to there's more benefit out there for all of us. So, but again, thank you. You guys did great.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a safe day.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Stop.